that's completely different than any other type of social media platform that we've ever seen before.
The algorithms are reinforcing social disparities.
I thought I had the freedom of speech.
They just like find a way to make it so nobody sees any of your content. This is blatant shadow banning.
This is bigger than TikTok. It's about who in our society gets heard.
Hello and welcome to the 206. My name is Mark, coming to you from Seattle, Washington, and this is the Changing Directions interview series. My guest for this conversation is Shalini Kantayya, whose brand new documentary recently had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. Shalini, welcome to the 206 and congratulations on the premiere.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. Now, TikTok Boom is your second Sundance world premiere after debuting Coded Bias way back in 2020, which honestly feels like, 100 lifetimes ago with everything that's taken place since then. So what has the experience been like returning to Sundance for another world premiere screening?
Well, the whole world has changed. And I think while these are two films made 2 years apart, they couldn't be more different years.
Right.
And I think with TikTok Boom, it was shot entirely under pandemic restrictions and premiered virtually. So it's a much different world that we're living in.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I love about your films, the two that Coded Bias and then now TikTok Boom, is how you cover these global technology topics, and yet they still feel so personal because of the connection that you have with the subjects that you include in the film. So tell me about working with this group of TikTok influencers who just seem so smart, so savvy, and so full of life, and energy. So what type of impact did they have on you, both as a filmmaker and just as a human being?
I really love my cast, and I find them to be a constant source of inspiration, whether it's just even their perspective around technology has been eye-opening for me in terms of understanding that there is a generation that is already past privacy. They're like, we grew up on these platforms, and therefore our lives are on these platforms. And so I just found it so fascinating. And I think what is, I think particular to the cast is that they are all people who are influencers who made an impact and whose lives were changed by the platform.
Right.
And in many ways, they have all stories that sort of intersect with the larger themes, and that's how I found them. But I've never had they're such a charismatic group of young people.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Now, one of the things that I've always struggled with TikTok in particular is I've always been of the mind of the widescreen horizontal image, where it's so tough for me with TikTok because it's the vertical style. But I feel like that's just something I have to live with now, right?
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm sort of a film school nerd and a lover of the cinema. And I think that for me too, I had to, when people started taking pictures vertically, and when people started making videos and films vertically on TikTok, I was like, that's wrong. Like, I can't believe that you could, do that.
Right.
And I think in the making of TikTok Boom, knowing that TikToks would be in the film, that they have a particular style, it was sort of a challenge for me to think about how you integrate the TikTok scroll and vertical video into the body of the film.
No, absolutely. That had to be a almost on both a subconscious level and a conscious level of actively making sure that everything fits. So thank you for going into that a bit. Now, when I was watching the documentary, I started writing down some keywords along the way. Words that stood out to me was community, algorithms, free speech, censorship, and politics. So you do such an amazing job of weaving all of that stuff together. So can you describe your process from concept to filming to editing to when you have the final finished product?
Yes. I mean, I think that many of my films are an exploration of a question that I am asking.
Yeah.
People have said about this film, TikTok Boom, that it seems like I was just figuring it out myself. And that's true.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that it's interesting to watch films that are like, oh, she's, I think there should be nuance and exploration. And so I think the film begins as a question that I'd like to ask. And that's how this film came to be. And then I find characters, because to me, that's the most important thing, and try to map out what their journey might look like. And then there's all of the exposition that comes in as you hang it on those character narratives.
Right. So given that you had mentioned that this film, was filmed and then premiered, during the pandemic, how much did you have to adapt to the COVID restrictions and all of the policies and stuff to get the documentary film, like going into houses, going into businesses, that type of stuff? How much of a process was that involving?
It was a massive process. We filmed in, I think, 5 countries and 10 cities, and in 22 days. And safety just became a big priority logistical challenge. And so there were things where we couldn't shoot, and so the whole shoot was remote, or we had to shoot outside because of COVID protocols. So, we just did our best, and I'm so grateful for my crew and my cast to adapting and keeping each other safe during these crazy times.
Oh yes, and it seems like things were changing constantly, so that must have been just a crazy thing to just keep up with that, let alone actually make the movie. So with that in mind, and aside from anything to do with the pandemic, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you had in making this documentary?
It's a very nuanced story, and TikTok encompasses a lot of hot button issues that can be triggering for a lot of people.
Right.
And I think that I've tried to the best of my ability to tell a nuanced story that is somehow gives people the space to ask their own questions.
Right.
And so I've just tried to do everything as carefully and as sensitively as I can.
No, that's great. And to me, that really comes across in the final product. As I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I don't feel like you were waving a big flag this direction or that direction. You were just here's the information. And like you were mentioning before, you were really learning and you were really curious about these things as well. So I think that's one of the things that really helped me dig through the information as you're providing it, is it came from that lens. So thank you for explaining that. That's great. Now, Shalini, now that this movie has had its premiere, what are you most grateful for when it comes to the entire process of making this movie?
Oh, I'm so grateful. I mean, first of all, I just want to say that it's always a small miracle in a filmmaker's life to premiere a feature at Sundance. And this time it feels like a lot of miracles had to happen.
Right. Yeah.
At every step of the production process so that we could deliver this film. And I'm so full of gratitude for my crew and my cast. For their support in this process.
Yeah, it really is such a huge team effort. And a lot of times there's so many unsung heroes. So I'm glad you're able to mention that as well. Thank you. Now, in the documentary and in Coded Bias for that matter, there's a lot of discussion about how technology impacts representation and opportunities for people who, I guess, don't fit the status quo. So as a filmmaker and as a human being, what type of impact do you want to have both on the industry or within the industry and on the world?
I think that as a filmmaker, I hope that I can help people see the world from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And empathize with people who make them care. The film critic Roger Ebert used to call cinema empathy machines.
Yeah.
That we sort of sit in the dark and we get told stories and we come to care about people who are different than us.
Right.
And to me, I think that's the power of cinema, is that power to make you care about someone, to have empathy for someone that you haven't met. And to me, that's how the world changes. And that's kind of what inspires me to make films. And with TikTok Boom and with Coded Bias, I think that what I hope is to pull back the curtain and engage people in a literacy around the technologies that we interact with every day, so that we can ask the right questions and like have better, oversight and governance of these technologies. And I think that happens by understanding them, and hopefully films help with that.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. And that's a great quote from Roger Ebert. I love that. No, Shalini, this interview series is called Changing Directions, and you're doing just that in so many ways. So I would like to acknowledge you for just existing in this space as a director, as a woman, as a human being. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and good luck with the movie.
Thanks so much. It was an honor.
Thank you. Now, the movie is TikTok Boom. This is Shalini Kantayya. My name is Mark, and this is the 206 Changing Directions interview series. Thank you so much. Be safe and see you next time.